Hey loves, it's Britt, and in this video I wanted to talk about double whammy aspects in Synastry. I've talked about this before. I think I've done a short video on it, but I wanted to expand on this as you requested. And also, yeah, it's just a really interesting topic, and these double whammy aspects in the Synastry really show the major relationship themes. It's a really good indicator of, yeah, the dominant themes of the relationship, the dominant energies that are flowing through the relationship. And it's quite often, too, that these double whammy aspects will also show up as an aspect in the composite chart. So then we have like a three-way aspect going on. So that is a really powerful indicator of a theme of the relationship. So yeah, let's talk about it. So a double whammy aspect is when the aspect is going both ways in the synastry. So we've got, a planet, like let's say my sun is conjunct to your moon, and then your sun is trine to my moon. That would be a double whammy aspect. So it doesn't have to be the same aspect, like it doesn't have to be a conjunction going both ways. It could be, like I said, a conjunction and a trine, or sometimes it could be a hard aspect and a soft aspect, so like a square and a trine going both ways. Or it could be, yeah, it could be two hard aspects. It could be, a square and an opposition, or square and a quincunx, or inconjunct. It could be any aspect, even the minor aspects you could include. Although, of course, the major aspects are going to be the most biggest themes, I guess. But, that's not necessarily true. I'm sure the minor aspects, although I haven't studied all of them, I'm opening my mind, you guys. I'm studying very deeply right now the quintile and the biquintile aspect, which tend to be pretty significant now that I'm, opening my mind to them. And it's not that I haven't looked at these aspects, it's just that there isn't a lot of information, and there isn't a lot of books on them, but I am studying them. I do see them, and yeah, so you can definitely count minor aspects as well. So these double whammy aspects show the major relationships themes, like I've said. So like, for example, let's say you have a Sun Pluto double whammy, right? And then in the composite chart, you also have a Sun conjunct Pluto or something like that. That will show that the Sun Pluto themes are, a huge part of this relationship, right? So, transformation, ego deaths, confidence strengthening, or confidence decreasing, depending on the aspect, right? And I mean, depending on how you use it. So, that would be a highly plutonic relationship. That would be a relationship that transforms your ego, your identity in a big way, either for better or for worse. And it does tend to be a pretty major thing. The other thing, too, is that when you're having these double whammy aspects, you can extend the orb a little bit. So, like, for example, let's say you've got the Sun conjunct Pluto at 2-degree orb, right? So they're within 2 degrees. And then you've got the Sun opposite Pluto, but it's at 8 degrees. Now, if that Sun opposite Pluto at 8 degrees was by itself without that conjunction on the other side, I wouldn't say that it is that important in your synastry. But because you have the conjunction on the other side, and then you've got the Sun conjunct Pluto in the composite chart, you can absolutely emphasize that Sun Pluto opposition, even though it's at 8 degrees. So you can extend, and not that 8 degrees is an orb that is too wide to be felt ever, even by itself, but if I was reading the synastry chart and that was by itself, I wouldn't emphasize that aspect unless, of course, the client asked me to and was like asking about it. But like otherwise, the closer the orb, the more it's going to be felt, right? And that is always true. But when you have an aspect going double whammy like that, this is showing a theme. And so you can emphasize it a little bit more, and you can, count, like you kind of lump them together. It's like, oh, okay, we've got this theme here. We've got this Sun Pluto theme of this relationship. And so, yeah, you can really just go through like whatever your themes are. And sometimes there's going to be many, sometimes there's lots, sometimes there's only a few, right? Sometimes there's none. So, it really is like a unique thing to see. I mean, it is pretty common, but It's definitely a powerful thing to see. It's definitely something that should be focused on. And like I said, you can even extend the orbs a little bit when you have these double whammy aspects. And like I could go through every single one and it's like that would take forever because there's so many potential aspects, but like you can really just meditate on it. Like meditate on the essence of Sun Pluto. And if you have that aspect going both ways, this is like one of the major themes. And then what if you also have a moon Uranus aspect going both ways? Then you kind of mix both of those. Those are very different energies, so those are both themes, right? So you can kind of meditate on the essence of the aspect, and also whether it's hard or soft, or and that's going to really show you like a main energy or main purpose of the relationship, because you're both doing that for each other. See, that's another significant piece of this that I should mention, is like when you have a one-way aspect, it's like Pluto is acting on Sun, right? And the Pluto person is, feeling that Sun person's Sun, and the Sun person is feeling that Pluto person's energy. Now, when you have it going both ways, you're both doing the same thing to each other. Now, one of you might be doing it in an easier way if one of the aspects is a trine, right? And the other is a square, then the one that's on the trine aspect is going to be flowing more easy, but it's more easily, but it's a theme. You're both doing it to each other. You're both doing the same thing to each other, even if one of you is doing it in a more smoother way, right? So it really can also show like that the relationship is not one-sided either, is another indicator. Like, so for example, like sometimes you have a one-way aspect, and we're going to see a situation where one person feels something very strong and maybe the other person doesn't feel it as much. When you're both doing it to each other, as shown by the double whammy aspect, it can show that you both are feeling the same way. So it is like it can be an indicator that the relationship is not one-sided. Not to say that one-way aspects mean the relationship is one-sided. It doesn't always mean that, but it can show when we have a double whammy aspect that like we both feel the same way, at least to do with that energy, right? So it doesn't always mean like the other person doesn't have feelings, but it's like in regards to Sun Pluto, you're both getting that energy, you're both feeling that, if that makes sense. Now that I'm talking about it and like I haven't had a really good sleep last night, I'm like, wait, does this make any sense at all? Like, do I sound completely stupid? And sometimes I do feel like that, honestly. But I'm hoping this is making some sense to you guys. It is actually a pretty complex synastry topic. Now that I'm talking about it, I'm like, oh geez, like, sometimes my Mercury and Gemini, it's like I understand things so deeply, but like the way that I articulate things, it's like I don't always know if it's making sense. So I hope this is making some sense. And yeah, it's a really good way to also like synthesize the synastry, like especially when you're a practicing astrologer too, like, and there's so many aspects in the synastry, right? You want to focus on the aspects that are the closest in orb. Like, so like if you have a double whammy and like they're both really wide orbs, that could still be a theme, but it's probably not going to be as big of an issue as like if the aspects are really close, or at least one of the aspects is really close in orb. I am a big believer, I'm a big advocate of orbs, you guys. And I know as beginners in astrology, I did it too. Often you're going to just gloss over orbs. You're going to be counting these aspects that are just so far away in orbs. And it's like, those aren't the real issues. You want to really go down to the closest orbs. But yeah, with double whammies, you can extend the orbs a bit, but like if they're both wide, it's still probably not as dominant of an energy as like those close orb aspects. But the double whammies can help you narrow it down in a reading, because you're not going to have time in a 1 hour session or even a 90-minute session to talk about every single aspect, right? You will not have time as an astrologer. You have to be able to like focus on what is truly important, which is going to be shown by the closest orb aspects, but also the double whammies are going to show the theme. So if you're going to try to articulate a theme to someone about their relationship, you want to focus on these double whammies, and then If it also shows up in the composite chart, ding, 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 like, here you go. This is a major theme of your relationship, and they're going to really feel it. They're going to both really feel it. Yeah, it's a really good way to like articulate the relationship's purpose and like, make it make sense to the client. Now, another thing I want to say about this, what was I going to say? There was another point to this that I was going to make about tying it into the composite chart. Oh, yes. Okay. So, you might have, like, let's say you have a double whammy Sun Pluto aspect in the Synastry. And then in the composite chart, you don't have a Sun Pluto aspect, but you have, say, Mercury conjunct Pluto or something. It's interesting how sometimes the synastry translates into the composite chart. Let's talk about that. So it's not always going to be the exact same aspect. It often is, but sometimes it's not. So what that is showing is that this identity crisis, this, confidence boost, or the opposite, that's showing up with the Sun Pluto aspect in the synastry, when you guys actually merge together and become one, become a couple, or become a long-term relationship, or if it's a friendship or whatever type of relationship it is, where you're actually, spending a significant amount of time together, the composite chart will start to, come out even more. It shows that Sun Pluto aspect combined, you take that, you mix it together like in a mixing bowl, right? You're mixing your two energies. Then you guys become a Mercury-Pluto conjunction. So it actually causes you to become, more Plutonic in your minds, more, of a researcher, more of an investigator, like it doesn't always manifest the same in the composite chart, right? So sometimes, like, when you combine the double whammy aspect in the synastry, you birth something else in the composite chart. But it's still kind of similar, right? It's still got that Plutonic theme, right? Or you could see something like this, like a double whammy Venus Mars or something in the synastry, and then in the composite chart, it's like a Venus Pluto conjunction, and it's like, oh, you take that and it actually turns into that when you be together. It doesn't take away the synastry or anything. They're both existing at the same time, but it just shows that you guys bring out a different energy in each other as you actually like collaborate long term in a relationship. So that's really interesting to see too, because sometimes, yeah, like you'll have a dominant theme in the synastry, and then in the composite chart it shows up as like a slightly different aspect, but it's still like kind of in line with that relationship theme. So yeah, it's really fun to look at. It's really fun to do. Another thing. So sometimes you'll have a double whammy hard aspect in the synastry. So you'll have like Sun square Pluto and then Sun opposite Pluto. And then in the composite chart, you'll have Sun sextile Pluto or Sun trine Pluto. Or the conjunction can be, go either way, right? But let's specifically talk about when it turns into a soft aspect. It turns into a trine or a sextile in the composite chart. So the way that I see that, or the way that I interpret that energetically, is like you have this day-to-day interaction going on in the synastry, but when you actually combine together and like combine forces and, make that baby, which is the composite chart. The composite chart is your relationship as a baby, as a separate entity. You actually turn into the soft aspect. So you actually resolve the issue in a way. It's not that it takes away the hard synastry, but it shows that like the way that you combine, you actually turn it into something easier, something smoother in the composite. Now, what about if it's the other way? So you've got a double whammy Sun Pluto trine turns into a Sun square Pluto in the composite chart. Well, that's like the same thing going the opposite way. So you have this ease and flow in the day-to-day interaction, but when you actually combine forces and, make that separate entity of your composite chart, the chart of the relationship, it shows that it is difficult. And, that one is actually probably harder to deal with. neither are insurmountable. Like, you'd have to look at the whole chart in its entirety. You can't just base it off one double whammy aspect that this is like bad, 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 right? Like, you guys would be shocked how many like double whammy moon square Uranus aspects and then moon squaring Uranus in the composite chart. Like, couples have been married for like years. Like, it's not always just one aspect. Like, you have to look at everything, right? Um, but yeah, so that shows that when you combine, it actually turns into a little bit more of a crisis. Now, that might be more motivating than the trine. That might mean you actually make something productive out of those trines in the synastry, right? Because squares are far more active, right? But it is going to be uncomfortable creating that with your composite chart. So anyways, it's very fun to look at. It's a really good technique you can use, like I said, to like discern the major themes of the relationship. And yeah, I'd love to know your thoughts on this. What double whammies do you guys have in your synastry? I'd love to hear about that. And thank you so much for watching, you guys. Love you guys, and we'll talk soon. Bye.